Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to be talking about if deadlifts are bad for weightlifting. Now, this is a common thing that coaches like to bring up, and there's lots of different kind of arguments, and we're going to go through those just quickly, and we're going to just try and I'll give you some of my ideas about what I think about deadlifts for weightlifting, and we can try and find some better rationales for why we do things, and ultimately those rationales are going to be very important when we go and make decisions inside the gym, because that's pretty much why we do and learn all the things that we do about training and about anatomy and about the body, is so that we can just make better decisions in the gym anyway. So the first one would start off about the whole idea about technique. And technique, as you would have seen, there's another video on the channel where I talk about technique in a little bit more detail and how I kind of just go over some slides from a course that I made. But you guys will see that technique, obviously there's lots of parts that go into technique. There's a lot of biases, there's ideas, there's understanding self-organization, understanding people's internal constraints, how they can move their body and how that's going to actually allow them to produce force. But there's lots of different variables like I've just mentioned. So when the coaches bring up ideas that performing X movement is going to negatively affect your performance in another movement. So say doing lots of deadlifts where the movement's slightly different. So we're going to probably not delay knee extension as much, and people are going to use slightly different strategies. You're probably going to have a slightly more flexed spine. You're probably going to start with your hips a little bit higher. You're going to want to reduce that moment arm from the bar to the hip, and that's going to improve the efficiency of the lift. Whereas in weightlifting, we're obviously using a lot smaller of a weight compared to our maximum deadlift, for some of you anyway. Some of you are quite efficient with your deadlifts and clean ratio, but for some of us, we're going to be in a very different position. We're going to be a little bit more upright, which is going to allow us to try and catch the load on our shoulders. We're going to want to delay knee extension. We're going to be not thinking about, this is an interesting idea, but not thinking about pushing into the floor. We're going to think about being more towards the front of our foot and trying to drive. So as that shin comes forward, the heel's going to lift up, and that's going to result in creating propulsion, which is what we're after. So that's something that's very different of the two lifts. So understanding, yes, there are differences in technique, but the argument against this is, well, that's just disrespectful to the brain's ability to problem solve. So we see that the brain is very, very intelligent and wants to commit movements and skills to long-term memory. So it's not interested in learning little tricks to just do, one repetition or do one thing. It wants to perform the movement so that it can understand how it's going to recreate this movement pattern in a very efficient way so that it can adapt to different situations and self-organize when needed. So we don't want to store all the possible scenarios of what will happen in a particular rep, say on a clean. We want to have the ability to have a framework of a technique that we can adapt to. So if we cut the pull short, our body will automatically dive under a little bit quicker. If we over pull it, we might make some other changes. So the second part of this discussion is that, well, physiologically, there's going to be different adaptations from deadlifts to clean pulls. And 100% that is true. So if you move something very heavy, you're obviously going to get very strong, but if you move something very, very heavy, it's probably very, very slow. And in weightlifting, we want to move moderately heavy things as fast as possible. Even though we're trying to move this heavy object, say it's a 300 kilo deadlift, we're trying to move it as fast as we can. If that weight is close to failure for us and it's reaching those high percentages of our 1RM, of our maximum weight we can lift, then obviously the movement and speed is going to slow down. Our velocity is going to be a lot slower. So that's something we need to keep in mind. But that goes for anything. If we know that our rate limiter is being reactive and we're not very reactive and we want to be more powerful and more explosive, then 100% we need to bias our training towards that. So in a comp prep, if I've got someone like myself who's not that reactive, I'm probably going to prioritize some more plyometrics or clean pulls at a lighter percentage to get a little bit more speed or some more power cleans than I would super, super heavy maximal deadlifts just because I want to, and then waste heaps of energy. So on that side, 100% deadlifts are going to be important in the program, but obviously at different stages and for different people, and depending on their needs, deadlifts are going to play a different role in someone's training. So that's something we need to understand. The context that someone's in is going to be extremely important. So hopefully you guys got something out of today's video and you can apply this to your own training and you have some better rationales and you can ask some better questions when some people bring up different kinds of ideas about training, like whether or not we should do deadlifts for weightlifting. Thanks so much for watching, guys, and I will see you in the next one. If you want to follow along and look at more videos I have on the channel, be sure to check out the others I have on the channel. I'll link some on the screen now.